On today's episode of Locked On Oilers, is Sam Gagner actually going to come back to the Edmonton Oilers for the third time in his career? We will talk about that. Plus, we will have an update on the Edmonton Oilers prospects at the World Junior Championships. All that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to the Locked On Oilers podcast. I'm your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. As mentioned on today's episode, we're going to start off with Sam Gagner. I miss you, Kevin Quinn. Is he going to make a comeback to the Edmonton Oilers? And what is it going to actually look like? Is it going to be a PTO? Is he actually going to help the Edmonton Oilers? We will talk about that. Plus, we are going to check in on the two Edmonton Oilers prospects at the World Junior Championships right now, and they're not exactly top talent. One is a captain of his team, and he's also my favorite prospect in the Oilers organization, so we will check in on them. Plus, there are rumors that have been sparked by the Edmonton Oilers Twitter themselves that it sounds like the Edmonton Oilers are going to have their own oil change once again. We will talk about what we want to see in the new version of Oil Change and what to expect from that show as well. All on today's episode of Locked On Oilers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcasts. Alrighty, let's start off with Sam Gagner, Edmonton Oilers darling. I really can't find one person other than my father, apparently, who doesn't like Sam Gagner, who doesn't want Sam Gagner back on the Edmonton Oilers. Well, the controversy, the rumors have started to swirl because Sam Gagner posted on his Instagram a photo of his workout and the workout shirt that he was wearing that he happened to take time out of his day to take off and put on the bike was an Edmonton Oilers shirt. Now, Sam Gagner is a free agent, and yes, Sam Gagner, normally when people are putting out workout photos or posts on social media in general, they're not really going to have a logo of a team that they're not playing for. Again, as mentioned, he is a free agent, so he could put whatever team on there, it doesn't really matter. But we're Oilers fans, and we all know that causes a little bit of controversy. So, would bringing back Sam Gagner really work? Because he did come back for a couple of seasons, for a second time around with the Edmonton Oilers a couple of seasons ago. He was traded in 2019-2020 as a part, I believe it was the Andreas Athanasiou trade, so fantastic. But he did stay in Detroit since then. Kind of a tumultuous time, I guess, in Detroit, as Detroit hasn't exactly been the best team in the NHL over the last couple of years. But Gagner's still been relatively productive, especially last year. When he was traded to the Detroit Red Wings initially, though, it wasn't too fantastic. He only played 6 games before the COVID pandemic hit and the league basically went out of, it went out of business. But he played 6 games there for the Detroit Red Wings, 1 goal, no assist, 1 point, and that was in 2020. And then when the league came back and had the shortened year, he played 42 games, had 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points, so pretty decent, not too bad. And then the next season, this past season that came by, you listen to Sam Gagner talk. I believe he was on Spittin' Chicklets, if I'm not mistaken, early on in the season, and was really talking about the difference of the Detroit Red Wings team that he was on. Just, they realized that they weren't the best. They weren't going to basically fight for the top of their division, but they were going to fight. And Sam Gagner was a part of a very interesting team down there in Detroit and was relatively productive. Last year in 81 games, only missed 1 game last season, 13 goals, 18 assists, good for 31 points. You have to remember, Sam Gagner was a 6th overall pick by the Edmonton Oilers? He's still a very, very, well, not still a top talent, but he still obviously has that scoring touch to him. Now he has over 15 years now in the league? Oh my goodness, I'm old. I watched him and Andrew Cogliano's first game in Rexall against the San Jose Sharks, and I remember I thought Sam Gagner scored. I went, Gagner! It was actually Cogliano, but Gagner got the assist, but either way, I am old. But that is why a lot of people want to see Sam Gagner back in an Edmonton Oilers uniform. They have the nostalgic feel. It's almost like a different generation's Ryan Smith almost. Now, don't start getting on me because I said Ryan Smith and Sam Gagner in the same sentence. But it does kind of give a similar nostalgic feel. A guy that, before he broke his jaw because of Zach Kassian, does anybody remember that when Zach Kassian's stick came up into his jaw in preseason and broke Sam Gagner's jaw? Sam Gagner was in the conversation of becoming the Edmonton Oilers' next captain. That's how much he's meant to this organization. He came back once again for a couple years, was traded, and now the Edmonton Oilers kind of have a need for him. The Edmonton Oilers wouldn't mind bringing in a bottom 6 guy who can do his job, who's been in the league long enough, who knows what he's doing. He'd be a pretty good fit for the Edmonton Oilers. I drew out some lines for us to see just how well he would fit with the Edmonton Oilers, and here are the lines that I have. Evander Kane, Connor McDavid, and Kyler Yamamoto, Zach Hyman, Leon Draisaitl, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, and Jesse Puljujarvi. And on that 4th line, I'm running an 11-7, and this is where you have Matthias Janmark and Sam Gagner. Now you can toss in Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. How about a nice nostalgic line of Matthias Janmark, Sam Gagner, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins? Huh? It'd feel like it's 2012 again. Sam Gagner, now, as I did mention, was relatively productive this past season. In his advanced stats with the goals for and goals against per 60, it wasn't too fantastic. But you also have to take a look at the team that he was playing for. The Detroit Red Wings were the worst team on the penalty kill, the worst team in the NHL. They had a 73.8% on the penalty kill. They were the second worst goals against per game played. So basically, they allowed the most goals per game was the Detroit Red Wings. The second most, I should say. Behind only the Montreal Canadiens, who also wasn't very fantastic. They also selected first overall, so that tells you how well they did. Sam Gagner's numbers, when you take a look at the goals for and goals against, aren't favorable. But he played on a very bad team. His goals against, in all situations, was a 4.24, which would have been 27th on the Oilers. At 5-on-5, a 2.91 goals against per 60, which was good for 22nd. But again, when you take a look at the whole team of the Detroit Red Wings and the whole team of the Edmonton Oilers, you're going to take a lot of those guys from the Detroit Red Wings and push them pretty low on the Edmonton Oilers roster when it comes to those stats. So I don't blame Sam Gagner for those numbers. I know it may be a confirmation bias, maybe this, maybe that, but Sam Gagner, with his veteran presence, with his knowledge of the city, with his passion of the game, with his obvious skill, and the backing of this city, because Edmonton loves Sam Gagner, I think he would be a perfect fit back with the Edmonton Oilers. Bring him back on a PTO. You notice that I didn't mention Warren Foegele in those lines. I think Warren Foegele will have to be the guy that goes because Tyson Barrie is too important to the Oilers after Duncan Keith retired. I don't think there's too much of a market right now on Jesse Puljujarvi. It's an easy move for Warren Foegele. It's an easy cap relief for the Edmonton Oilers if they do move Warren Foegele. So I think the Edmonton Oilers were to move Warren Foegele, I think Sam Gagner would be a fantastic, not replacement because they do play different positions, they're in different roles as well, but would be a very good addition to the Edmonton Oilers if they were to lose a bottom six guy like Foegele. What do you guys think? I'm a big Sam Gagner fan. I've always been Sam Gagner fan. I wore a jersey shirt one time. Another personal story. I'm sorry I'm rambling here. I wore a jersey shirt one time on a flight to Calgary that connected to Los Angeles, and it was again Sam Gagner, and I'm going down the aisle, and all I hear is, "Oh, who's on the back?" And I look over, and there's Ethan Morrow, who was just named the Edmonton Oilers captain like a couple weeks ago. And I go, "Oh, it's Gagner, whatever, show him Gagner." He's connecting down to Los Angeles as well from Calgary because he had his brother was one of the coaches down there, like a conditioning coach or something. And the whole flight down, Ethan Morrow and I were just chatting about hockey, about life. He sat in front of me on the flight, and all came back to this new kid that the Edmonton Oilers had brought in Sam Gagner. So there's my little Sam Gagner story. I also met him at the Edmonton International Airport a couple of years ago in his second stint with the Edmonton Oilers. Just a fantastic guy and a great guy you want in your organization. But let's move on to other guys within the organization who haven't quite cracked the lineup just yet, but they are playing right now in Edmonton at Rogers Place in the World Junior Championships, and that is Joel Mata, the Edmonton Oilers 7th round pick this past year, and my favorite Edmonton Oiler prospect, Luka Munzenberger. We'll check in on them and how they've been doing in the World Juniors in just a second, but I want to tell you about our partners over at Built first, because if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. You ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough. Yeah, that's right, cookie dough. Covered in chocolate. That's right, Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture with real cookie dough chunks inside of it. And of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Did I mention the chocolate is 100% real? Yeah, all the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of actually making the cookie dough. Plus, the cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. What's also great about Built is that all of their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is actually good for you with Built.com and Built bars in general. Head to Built.com right now and make sure you use the promo code LOCKED15, that is locked 15, to get 15% off your next order at Built.com. That is locked 15 to get 15% off your next order at Built.com. Alrighty, we are moving into, we went from one Edmonton Oiler, he's not an Edmonton Oiler yet, I should say. Well, he was an Edmonton Oiler, a former Edmonton Oiler from the start of the decade of darkness, Sam Gagner, to some Oilers within the organization who, well, might not be in the decade of darkness, who might help the Edmonton Oilers become a very, very strong team down the road. And these are two guys currently playing in the World Junior Championships. As mentioned, that is Luka Munzenberger and Joel Mata. As I move my board over, I didn't want to distract you there, but I did anyways. Luka Munzenberger is the captain of Germany. As mentioned, he was the 90th overall selection for the Edmonton Oilers in the 2021 draft. A lot of people weren't happy about it. A lot of people were not happy about it. Everybody, when Luka Munzenberger was selected, went, "Who? who's this guy? Including myself. As mentioned, I do go into every draft, look at 200 plus prospects in every draft, and even this Luka Munzenberger was one of the names where I went, I've never heard of this guy. And the Edmonton Oilers took a splash at him at number 90, and now you see why. He, again, as mentioned, he's the captain of Germany, and seeing some of the stuff that people are putting out on the kid, you're really liking it. He did miss the game against the U.S., but he does have a goal in the tournament, in the last tournament as well, or in the winter tournament. He was starting to come on a little bit. He had a nice goal after a turnover coming out of the penalty kill, or coming out of the penalty box, back in December. He had some nice opportunities back then, and he's showing himself here again. Now, I want you to listen to this quote from David Starman from NHL Network. Luka Munzenberger plays for keeps, okay? Here's the next part of his tweet. And hits like Scott Stevens. Okay, now if you have been listening to the way I talk about Luka Munzenberger for the last couple of weeks, you'd understand just how much I like Luka Munzenberger. And it's a lot. And there's a lot of reasons why. The kid can skate. A lot of people have really praised his skating, his lateral movement, his presence on the ice. Obviously, if he can hit like Scott Stevens and also stand at about 6'4", yeah, that's kind of scary. And he plays for keeps. Tyler Wright, the Edmonton Oilers head of scouting, amateur scouting, said that Luka Munzenberger is a win-at-all-costs type player. Now you have a guy like Dave Starman, who's separate from the Edmonton Oilers organization, who this is probably Luka Munzenberger, or his first introduction, I guess, to Luka Munzenberger. I'm not sure his familiarity with Munzenberger, but even he's saying that he plays for keeps. Now, Luka Munzenberger goes back to Vermont after the tournament, where Todd Woodcroft, Jay's brother, is coaching him, and gets to learn more about becoming a solid defenseman. A lot of people, again, within the organization say he can skate, he's a win-at-all-costs type player, he can hit, and these are the things that are now coming out into the public eye because they are seeing him, not really for the first time, but now they are getting the real spotlight of Luka Munzenberger. This is exciting. Because Luka Munzenberger isn't Philip Broberg. He isn't an Evan Bouchard. But Luka Munzenberger is a shut-down defenseman who can skate, who can move the puck. We haven't even talked about that. Who can hit, who can play in his own end, and as mentioned, plays for keeps. Wins at all costs. That's the type of player you want. And especially, I mentioned it throughout the last series, I guess, with the top prospects. The philosophy around the Edmonton Oilers with their prospects and with their drafting is that they want players who want to win, who have maybe raw skill is kind of a way to put it. But you take a look at Xavier Bourgault, who is, as the Edmonton Oilers put him, a rink rat. You take a look at Dylan Holloway. You take a look at Evan Bouchard, Philip Broberg. All those guys, and those are first-round picks, are all guys who are sitting there who just want to prove themselves, who just want to win. They can skate hard, they can play hard, they go in those dirty areas, they are fantastic players, they are very smart, and the key thing is that they just want to win and prove themselves as a hockey player. That's what Luka Munzenberger is doing right now for Germany. Now his German team plays in the quarterfinals tomorrow against Finland. Now, the interesting thing about Finland is that they have the Edmonton Oilers' other prospect in the World Junior Championships, and that is Joel Mata, as mentioned before. He's a 7th-round pick from the Edmonton Oilers this past year, and the interesting thing is, as well, is he's also a University of Vermont player. He also plays for Todd Woodcroft, and him and Luka Munzenberger are best friends. They're best friends who are going to live with each other next year. Now, the thing about Joel Mata, and you hear him talk, you hear his coaches talk about him as well, he realizes that he's not Jesse Puljujärvi, he's not Patrick Laine and Sebastian Aho, but what he is he's a very solid bottom six player. He likes shutting down the other team, he likes playing around the other team's net, and really, really focusing on the little things in the game. And you see just how well he does it in the World Juniors. I mean, I was watching him play against Czechia, and as soon as I turned on the TV, turned on the channel, all I see is, Finland scored, but we're going to I was going to say VAR. I'm a soccer fan, so I was going to say that. They're going upstairs to check it. Why? Well, because as the puck was getting shot, all you see is the blocker of the goalie, Bednarik, all of a sudden move. You're like, there was some movement there. What happened? You see on the replay, Joel Mata subtly put his hand behind his back, grabbed the blocker, and move Bednarik's blocker. Now, he was able to get back into position and make the play, or try and make the save, and that is why the goal was allowed. But Joel Mata never stopped being a nuisance in front of the Czechia net. In front of any net. And his hands around the net are fantastic. He scored 2 goals against Slovakia in a 9-2 victory over them that actually eventually eliminated Slovakia from the tournament and saw now Germany face Finland in the next round. But Joel Mata was also named player of the game in that game. Joel Mata also plays on the power play, on the penalty kill, in important situations, and he's not a Patrick Laine. He's not a guy who's going to go out there and get you a goal at any point, but he's a guy who's going to go out there and work hard and make it difficult on the other team. And now he gets to develop next to Luka Munzenberger, who's probably going to be in the Edmonton Oilers organization for a little while. And under Todd Woodcroft, Jay's brother. I'm excited for Joel Mata. As mentioned, tomorrow, Finland versus Germany in the quarterfinals. Luka Munzenberger versus Joel Mata. Also, quick shout out to Joel Mata's mother, who actually liked one of our tweets after Joel Mata was drafted by the Edmonton Oilers. So, supportive family as well from Joel Mata. So, just a lot of great storylines for him. And the University of Vermont, obviously, if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, you're going to be looking for a lot of news from the University of Vermont. Alrighty, let's move into, because it sounds like the Edmonton Oilers Twitter broke the news that they're working on a new documentary within the Edmonton Oilers. Basically an oil change 2.0. So what do we want to see from it? I have drawn out 3 things that I want to see from the new oil change. I want to see what you guys think. I've seen a lot of these new shows, and especially looking back at the old oil changes, they weren't fantastic. But now we've gotten enough. There's a right way to do it. So we will get into that in just a second. But first, I want to thank you for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day, your team every day. And for your second listen, make sure you tune in to Locked On NHL, where Locked On experts give you a daily 30-minute podcast on all things NHL all year long. Stay up to date on everything in the hockey world with Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute NHL podcast. As I reach over for my notes, I'm sorry if you're watching on YouTube, by the way. I'm sure you're just like, can you stop grabbing your whiteboards here because I like start doing a dance up here about them. If you're on audio, you're just like, stop referring to it. I appreciate it. I'm sorry. But either way, it sounds like Edmonton or the Edmonton Oilers have been working on an oil change 2.0, and it makes sense. It does make sense. It's something. I mean, you have the best player in the world in Connor McDavid, the second best player in the world in Leon Draisaitl. You have a very exciting team. I mean, it only makes sense. But the interesting thing is that it's not like an Amazon who's doing it, who does the all or nothings that we saw the Toronto Maple Leafs be a part of. It's not like a Netflix. It's nothing like that. It seems like the Edmonton Oilers are just contracting somebody to do it themselves. So the Edmonton Oilers are really going to have most of the control over it, which doesn't really appeal to me. That's not something, it just makes it feel like Edmonton Oilers propaganda, really. And that's kind of the issue that I find with a lot of the media around the Edmonton Oilers, is that it's so produced within the organization. It's all OEG. It's all whoever OEG wants to do it is going to be doing it. And that's kind of frustrating. You see with the Toronto Maple Leafs and with MLSC, they allowed Amazon to come in and do their thing. Amazon has had a long history of doing these all or nothing type of shows. They've done it with Michigan football. They did it, I believe, with the Oakland Raiders, the Philadelphia Eagles as well. And that's only with the American team. I'm watching currently their Arsenal one over in this is the second soccer reference I've made today. I'm wearing a soccer jersey. I swear I'm not European, but yes, they've done Arsenal, they've done Tottenham, they've done the Brazilian team, like Manchester City. Excuse me, that was a sad mistake there. But they do it well and they do it properly, and those are kind of what I'm looking for in the new Edmonton Oilers oil change, but I'm afraid that that's not what we're going to get. But either way, enough of the preamble. Here are the three things that I really want to see in the new oil change, or oil change 2.0. The first thing is more one-on-one conversations with players, and that's kind of just sitting down in an empty room. I mean, if you've been in Rogers Place, you see how many media places there are for them just to throw them in front of a camera, have an ambient type of background or whatever, and just give them a conversation, kind of similar to the 24/7 documentaries that they had leading up to the Winter Classics, where they went into their lives, they sat them down and they had pointed questions. They were like, oh, this face off with Claude Giroux, what was going through your head, blah blah blah, stuff like that. That's really what I want to see in with the one-on-one conversations, because what I remember from the old oil changes is that it was mostly just narrative based. Like, there was a narrator who explained what was going on, and that was really it. You didn't really get the one-on-one conversations on what was really going on in the background. It was more just, here's what's happening, and that wasn't fun. Social media did a better job of telling me what was going on than oil change itself, and that's not what you want from this show. So the first thing is more one-on-one pointed conversations with the players and with the people who are basically involved in the show, whoever it may be. The second thing I want to see more from in Oil Change 2.0 is more community input. Now, I mentioned All or Nothing. There's another show that I watch, a soccer show. It's called, I believe it was We Are Sunderland. It's about Sunderland Football Club, who is a team who was very high in the hockey or in the soccer world. They were in the top level of soccer, and then they now went down to the third level. Now they're back in the second. But it was all about the struggle of the team and how it related to the city. Well, what else does the city of Edmonton run on other than the Edmonton Oilers? Everything in this city is based on the Edmonton Oilers and how well they're doing. All I see now is people start tweeting out going, if I could just go back to the moss pit and have fun and remember all the times that you met random people that you've never met before, but you all came together because of the Edmonton Oilers. And that's what I really want to see. A bit more of a community output, a community input, I should say, in the new oil change. Talk to Oilers fans. Talk to lifelong Oilers fans. Talk to new Oilers fans. Talk to the businesses around Rogers Place who want to talk about what it's like when the Edmonton Oilers are winning or what it's like when the Edmonton Oilers are losing. Talk about those. Talk about the mom and pop shops who have, throughout their entire... Look, go talk to Coliseum Steak and Pizza. Go talk to them. Talk to them about when the Rogers or Rexall Place used to be popping and people would come down to Coliseum Pizza and Steak and Pizza and go down to the Oilers game and then come back for a couple drinks afterwards. It's not there anymore. But people still want to hear that. Give us a little bit more of us. We realize that OEG is this big company and that you just want to pump out OEG and the Oilers. But talk to us. We're the ones who are putting the money in the pockets, who are coming and supporting this team. That's what I want to see in the oil change. I want it to be more personal. And that is the third thing that I have that I want to see from Oil Change 2.0 is get more personal, not only with us, but with the players as well. Get into their homes. I realize a lot of Oilers won't probably want cameras in their houses all the time. They won't want the exterior shots so then Oilers fans can go, that's Darnell Nurse's house. But get personal with them. Get it within their lives. What makes them want to be an Oiler? What makes them want to be a hockey player? What drives them? What are their fears as hockey players? Get personal with them. Make them relatable for the people who are watching. Not many people can relate to multi-millionaire hockey players going out there and playing a sport for their career. Make it relatable. Make it so that not only are Oilers fans sitting there going, I want to praise this guy or I want to support this guy because he plays for my team, but I want to support this guy because he has stuff going on outside of the hockey rink that I can relate to. I also have kids, not me, but I'm saying somebody watching goes, I also have kids that I need to tend to after work or this or that. And Zach Hyman now has a new kid. How does he tend with that? How does he deal with being a second or first liner on a contender team and then come back home as if that's not actually happening? Let us see that. Let us feel relatable. Let us feel connected to the Edmonton Oilers. Those are the three things I want to see from the brand new oil change. I just want it to be personal. I don't want this narrator telling me what I'm seeing. I know what Edmonton looks like. I know that type of stuff. Give me personality. Give me something relatable. That is what I want from the new oil change, and that is where we are going to call it today. A long one today, but needed. We needed a little comeback today, as last week we stopped on Wednesday. We had our episode yesterday. I had a lot to catch up on, so it was nice to get to talk to you once again. I hope you have a wonderful day. It looks like it's going to be beautiful this Tuesday, and then once again, I will be back tomorrow on Wednesday. No Thursday episode, but we will have a Friday episode. And then next week, we will be bumping down once again to 3 episodes in the week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Either way, enjoy your day. I hope you stay safe and play La Bamba, baby.